Christmas dinner. The table sparkled with golden plates, crystal glasses, and the sound of laughter that didn't include me. I sat quietly at the end, ignored, like an old ornament someone forgot to pack away. Then my son stood, champagne glass raised high, smiling like a politician. $8,000 a month, he declared, his voice booming across the room. That's what I give my mother so she can live in comfort after all her sacrifices. Applause, laughter, admiring nods, and me, frozen. $8,000? I drove a rusted car with a broken heater. I ate canned beans for dinner. I scrubbed warehouses at midnight just to pay rent. Not a single penny of that money ever reached me. I looked at him. My son, the boy I raised, the man who turned me into a prop for his performance. But when I opened my mouth and told the truth, my daughter-in-law froze, and the entire room went silent. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Christmas used to mean something in my family. When my husband was alive, the house would glow with lights, laughter, and the smell of cinnamon. My son would drag in the biggest tree he could find. My daughter-in-law would fuss about the ornaments, and my grandchildren would tear through wrapping paper while I sat in the middle of it all, smiling. But this Christmas, I was just a shadow. When I walked into my son's mansion, no one rushed to greet me. The foyer was full of coats, expensive fur-trimmed coats that weren't mine. I clutched my old wool jacket tighter, praying no one noticed how frayed the sleeves were. "Linda, you're here," my daughter-in-law, Sophia, said flatly, her smile more for the guests than for me. She didn't take my coat. She just turned back to her friends, leaving me to hang it myself. At the dining room, the table glittered, golden chargers, fine china, crystal glasses catching the light of the chandelier. My heart ached at how beautiful it all looked, but the ache grew sharper when I saw where they had put me. Not at the center. Not near my son. No. They had placed a wobbly chair at the far end, half tucked against the wall, as if I were just another guest, not the woman who gave birth to the man sitting at the head of the table. I sat down quietly, folding my hands in my lap. The conversation swirled around me. Real estate deals, vacations in Europe, new cars. Every time I tried to join in, Sophia cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Oh, Linda," she chuckled once, shaking her head as though I were a child. "You wouldn't understand. This is about investments." Her friends giggled. My cheeks burned. I picked at my plate in silence as the servants laid down roasted lamb, truffle potatoes, and dishes I couldn't even pronounce. I thought of the half-empty can of beans waiting for me back at home. Because while they drank champagne, I was scrubbing toilets at a diner to keep my lights on. While they laughed about their ski trips, I dragged myself through midnight warehouse shifts, my back aching as I lifted boxes heavier than I was. When they showed off new jewelry, I was counting tips from cleaning motel rooms, shoving crumpled bills into an envelope so I could buy groceries. 3 jobs, 7 days a week. And still, I was barely surviving. Then came the toasts. Glasses clinked. My son, Michael, rose to his feet. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my car. He tapped his glass with a silver fork, and the room hushed instantly. He smiled, that politician's smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Tonight," he said, voice booming with pride, "I want to honor someone very special. My mother." Heads turned toward me. For the first time all night, I was the center of attention. My chest tightened, a flicker of hope igniting. Maybe, just maybe, he hadn't forgotten me. "My mother has sacrificed everything for me," he continued, raising his glass higher. "And that's why I make sure she never has to struggle again. I give her $8,000 every month so she can live in comfort, the way she deserves." Applause thundered. Guests nodded approvingly, Some even looked at me with admiration. But me? I sat frozen. $8,000? I drove a rusted car with a broken heater. I ate canned beans for dinner. I scrubbed diners, warehouses, and motel rooms just to keep a roof over my head. Not a single dollar had ever reached me. I looked at my son, my heart pounding. And then, I caught it. The look in Sophia's eyes. A glint, sharp as glass. She smiled wider, tilting her champagne flute, her gaze sliding toward me with triumph. This wasn't generosity. It was humiliation, wrapped in gold and lies. The applause that night still rang in my ears long after the dinner ended. The chandelier's glitter faded. The laughter died down. But the lie my son told lingered. Heavy. Suffocating. $8,000 a month. I drove home in silence, my old Ford rattling against the December wind, its heater long broken. My fingers stiffened against the wheel, and the cold crept into my bones. I thought of the rich perfume that clung to Sophia's gown, the golden forks on their table, and then looked down at my hands, calloused, cracked from bleach. When I pushed open the door to my tiny apartment, the reality greeted me like a slap. A stack of bills sat neatly on the table, each envelope heavier than the last. Electricity overdue, rent behind, insurance lapsed. I dropped my bag on the floor, too tired to cry, and pulled off my coat. The silence of the room pressed in on me. I made a cup of instant coffee, bitter, no sugar, and sat staring at the bills, replaying Michael's words in my head. $8,000 a month, he had said proudly, while his guests clapped and cheered. I whispered the words to myself, almost choking on them. $8,000 a month, and I ate canned beans for Christmas. The humiliation burned deeper than hunger. At midnight, I dressed again. The polyester vest from the grocery store still smelled of dust and chemicals. I clocked in for the graveyard shift, stacking shelves under the buzzing fluorescent lights. Every beep of the scanner echoed like a cruel reminder. This wasn't comfort. This wasn't freedom. This was survival. By 4 a.m., I changed uniforms again, pulling on gloves for my second job at the diner, scrubbing toilets, wiping tables sticky with syrup, collecting tips in sweaty dollar bills that barely added up to bus fare. My back screamed, my knees buckled, but I pressed on. And when the sun rose, I dragged myself to the motel. Room after room, bed after bed, I scrubbed sheets, emptied trash, lined up soaps that no one would ever notice. 3 jobs, 3 uniforms, 3 masks of exhaustion. By the time I returned home, the sun was already setting again. My body ached, my head throbbed, and still, there was no rest. The stack of bills hadn't shrunk. My fridge hummed weakly, holding little more than eggs, milk, and leftovers I could stretch into another week. That night, I opened my old laptop. The screen flickered as I logged into my bank account. My chest tightened as I saw the same pitiful numbers glow on the screen, barely above zero. No mysterious deposits, no $8,000. Nothing. The truth was clear now. Michael had built his glittering reputation on a lie, and I was the body he draped it over. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Memories swarmed. Michael at 5 years old, clinging to my hand at the county fair. Michael as a teenager, slamming doors during arguments. Michael as a man, standing tall and proud while erasing me with every lie. Sophia's smile came back to me then, sharp, victorious, a dagger dressed in lipstick. I clenched my fists, whispering into the empty room. You think I'll stay silent. You think I'll let you destroy me. But you've underestimated me for the last time. The humiliation was turning into something else now. Something stronger. Something colder. Revenge was beginning to take root. The next morning, my alarm blared at 4:30. My bones screamed for rest, but I swung my legs out of bed anyway. Habit had no mercy. The polyester vest clung to me again as I trudged through the icy dawn. stocking shelves no one thanked me for. But that morning, I wasn't just stacking cans. I was replaying every detail of the night before. Michael's smile, so polished it could have been rehearsed. Sophia's glance, too sharp, too knowing. And the way the guests clapped, not for me, but for the image of me they painted. I was done being a prop. "Rough night?" Janet, my coworker, asked as she passed me in the cereal aisle. She caught the fire in my eyes and raised a brow. "Something like that," I muttered, sliding boxes onto the shelf. Then I paused. "Janet, let me ask you something. If someone claimed they gave you money every month, thousands of dollars, but you never saw it, what would you call that?" Her brow furrowed. "Fraud, theft, maybe even tax evasion if they're lying on paper." Her answer landed like a stone in my chest. Fraud, theft, crimes. Michael's shining image wasn't just humiliating me. It could crumble into ashes if anyone pulled at the right thread. That night, after my third shift at the motel, I pulled out my old notebook. My fingers ached, but I wrote with a steady hand. Allowance. Every bill I had paid. Every debt still hanging over me. Every hour worked at every miserable job. Paper after paper, I stacked evidence. And then I remembered something. Years ago, when Michael first started his business, he begged me to co-sign a loan. I had kept the documents in a shoebox under my bed. My name and signature sat there, proof of how I had helped him climb. Without me, his empire wouldn't even exist. I pulled the shoebox out, dust rising around it. My hands shook as I opened it, flipping through the faded papers until I found what I was looking for. My breath caught. There it was. My name, my sacrifice, my blood inked on the page. I whispered into the silence of my room. "You built your kingdom on my back, and now you'll answer for every lie." The next Sunday, I forced myself to attend dinner at Michael's house again. The table groaned under golden dishes, roast meats, and crystal glasses. My stomach twisted, not with hunger, but with resolve. Sophia smirked as I sat down. "Linda, I hope you got your allowance this month. Michael's so generous." I locked eyes with her. My voice was steady, calm. "Oh yes, I received something." Her fork paused in midair. Michael's eyes flicked toward me, cautious. I smiled, not sweetly, but with steel. And in that moment, they didn't know it, but the game had shifted. The following weeks blurred into a bitter cycle: work, exhaustion, and Sunday dinners where I played the silent fool at my own son's table. Every gathering, they found new ways to remind me of my place. One Sunday, as guests arrived with glittering gifts, I handed Sophia a small parcel, a knitted scarf I'd worked on late at night when my fingers weren't too sore. She unwrapped it slowly, holding it up with pinched fingers as if it were infected. "Oh," she said with a laugh, "handmade. How quaint." The room erupted in laughter. My face burned as I watched her toss it aside like trash, while Michael slid a velvet box across the table to her mother. Inside, diamond earrings that sparkled under the chandelier. Another evening, I tried to help in the kitchen. Sophia snatched the spoon from my hand. "Careful, Linda. These dishes are expensive. Don't want you breaking something you can't replace." Her friends giggled. I swallowed the sting, nodding, though my hands trembled with rage. And then came the gifts for the grandchildren. Michael and Sophia handed over the latest gadgets: sleek phones, shiny tablets, expensive sneakers. When the children unwrapped my modest presents, storybooks, puzzles, sweaters from the thrift store, they barely glanced at them before tossing them aside. "Grandma, this isn't what I wanted," one of them muttered. My son didn't correct him. He just smiled proudly at Sophia, as though her extravagance was the only thing worth admiring. I sat there in silence, every humiliation pressing heavier on my chest. But deep inside, the silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was strategy. because while they laughed at me, I was building something. At night, after scrubbing motel floors, I pored over old documents, receipts, letters, bank slips, the shoebox filled with proof that Michael had siphoned every penny from my husband's estate. And quietly, I began to notice small cracks in their golden facade. A hushed phone call Sophia didn't want Michael to overhear. An overdraft letter I glimpsed on the counter when she thought no one was looking. A piece of gossip from a neighbor. They live big, but I hear money's tighter than it looks. The empire Michael boasted about was teetering, and I was about to deliver the final blow. The next Sunday, Michael raised another toast. His voice rang with false pride. To my mother, who never has to worry about money thanks to me. Laughter, applause. All eyes turned to me. I stood slowly, my cane tapping once against the floor. My dear, I said softly, my gaze sweeping the room. If I truly received that $8,000 each month, then tell me why I work 3 jobs just to eat. The room went silent. Sophia's face drained of color. Michael stuttered, words failing him. I sat back down, my expression calm. But inside, my revenge was sharpening. The time for humiliation was nearly over. The time for justice was coming. That Sunday night, after Michael's toast and Sophia's frozen smile, I went home not defeated, but electrified. For the first time in months, the humiliation didn't bury me. It sharpened me. I laid out every document across my tiny kitchen table. The shoebox of old loan papers with my signature. The bank slips showing missing transfers. The medical bills I'd paid alone, while Michael boasted of being my provider. I took photos. I made copies. I built a trail so thick no one could deny it. But paper wasn't enough. I needed muscle. So I paid a visit to an old friend, Harold, my late husband's accountant. His hair was grayer now, his eyes tired, but when I told him what Michael had been claiming, Harold's jaw tightened. Linda, if what you're saying is true, then Michael isn't just lying. He's committing fraud. If he's declaring money as support to you that you never got, the IRS would eat him alive. My heart pounded. Can you help me prove it? Harold adjusted his glasses, nodding slowly. I still have records from your husband's estate. If Michael's been moving things around, we'll find it. But Linda, are you sure you want to do this to your own son? I looked him dead in the eye. My son tried to bury me alive in lies. Now I'll bury his lies in truth. The following weeks, I played the weak, forgotten mother at every dinner. I smiled politely when Sophia mocked me. I bowed my head when Michael raised his glass, bragging again and again about his generosity. All the while, Harold and I pieced together the puzzle. Missing deposits, forged signatures, even tax filings where Michael claimed dependent care, my name listed, as though I were some charity case he funded. The deeper we dug, the uglier it got. And then, the moment came. Harold slid a folder across his desk toward me. Inside were printed pages, crisp and undeniable. Proof of everything. The lies, the fraud, the theft. Linda, he said quietly, with this, you don't just have a case. You have the power to destroy him. I held the folder close to my chest. For the first time in years, I felt tall again. That Sunday, I arrived at Michael's house in my plain gray dress, cane tapping softly on the marble floor. No one knew that tucked inside my handbag was the very evidence that would flip the table, and their lives, upside down. Sophia smirked as usual. Michael boomed another toast. Guests clapped, wine flowed, but my lips curled into the faintest smile. Because tonight, the game was mine. The dining room glowed under crystal chandeliers. Guests clinked glasses, laughter swirled like perfume, and at the head of the table, Michael rose with his champagne. His voice carried, strong and polished. Another year, another blessing, he boomed. And tonight I want to honor my mother once more. She never has to lift a finger because I provide for her. $8,000 a month, every month, without fail. Applause thundered. Guests smiled, nodding approvingly. A few even turned to me, eyes warm with admiration. But I didn't smile back. Not this time. I pushed my chair back slowly, my cane tapping against the hardwood as I stood. The room hushed, curiosity rippling like a cold wind. $8,000, I repeated softly, my voice steady but slicing through the air. That's what my son says he gives me. $8,000 every month so I can live in comfort. Michael beamed, spreading his arms. See? She knows. I cut him off. But let me ask you, Michael, where is it? His smile faltered. What? Where is it? My voice grew louder, stronger. Because I live in a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint. I scrub diner toilets at midnight. I clean motel rooms until my hands bleed. I eat beans from a can. And while you raise a glass to your generosity, I haven't seen a single dollar. Gasps rippled across the table. Forks froze midair. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered against the floor. I turned slowly, my gaze sweeping the stunned faces. So tell me, Michael, tell them all, where is the $8,000 you boast about? Sophia's face went pale. She fumbled with her napkin, eyes darting around the table. A bead of sweat rolled down her temple. Mother, please, Michael stammered. This isn't. But I reached into my handbag, my fingers brushing the folder Harold had given me. I laid it on the table with a deliberate thud. This, I said, flipping it open, is proof. Bank records, tax filings, forged signatures. My name listed as a dependent on your claims, while I live like a beggar. Fraud, theft, lies, all dressed up as generosity. The room erupted in whispers. Faces turned to Michael, disbelief and disgust mingling in their eyes. A guest whispered, "She works 3 jobs, while he brags about supporting her?" Sophia's hands trembled. Michael's face flushed crimson. "You thought you could build your empire on my back," I said, my voice steady as steel. "You thought I'd stay silent, invisible, humiliated. But tonight, everyone sees the truth. You are not a provider. You are a thief." Silence. And then, a knock at the door. 2 men stepped in, their badges glinting under the chandelier. IRS officers. "Michael Williams?" one of them said firmly. "We need to speak with you regarding financial fraud and misrepresentation." The room froze. Sophia's jaw dropped. Michael sputtered, his polished voice cracking. This is a mistake." The officer shook his head. "No mistake, sir. We have evidence." He tapped the folder on the table. "Evidence your mother provided." Gasps. Guests stared at me now with wide eyes. Michael's knees buckled. Sophia clutched his arm, her face ashen. I straightened, my cane firm in my grip. "You tried to bury me in lies, Michael. But you forgot. I'm the seed, and seeds always rise." The officers escorted him out, Sophia trailing behind in tears. The grand table, once filled with laughter, was now drenched in silence and shame. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt seen. And if you thought tonight's revenge was shocking, wait until you hear what happened at when my son took my villa and gave it to his wife's mother. He said, "It's theirs now." What I did took him unawares. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow with another story that will leave you speechless.